Happy Mushoku Mondays, everybody. Welcome back to yet another trek, the Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation novel series. We're on Volume 22, Chapter 11, and I have read the extra chapter, and so this is going to be the final Mushoku Monday for at least Volume 22. We're still going to continue to the rest of the series, but that's going to be it for 22, and I'm pretty sure we can get through all this in this one Mushoku Monday. I just know that extra chapter is pretty long. I did try to condense it a little bit there, but as usual, I'm always afraid of condensing too much stuff to lose context there, so it's always a balance. It's always a balance. But yeah, as per usual, thank you guys so much for dropping by for the premiere. Hey chat, hope you guys are doing well. Thank you guys so much for dropping by for this Mushoku Monday. Make sure to hit the like button. Hit it right now. If you haven't already, hit it right there. It's the best way to support the channel. I greatly appreciate you guys' support. Yes, as per usual, greatly appreciate everybody that supports the channel through kind words. And yes, most of all, those that support monetarily through Patreon, tips, links, super thanks, memberships. It all means so much to me. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Nicholas last week, up to 16 months at this point. Been around for a while. Orsid Cultist has been here for 10 months. Thank you so much. Gearless with another big, massive super. Thank you so much, as well as being a 7-month membership. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And Inferno Torch with a whole bunch of supers. Like, he's just going in there and he's just throwing a bunch of supers at me. The entire Mushoku Monday, just sitting there throwing them at me. Thank you so much, Inferno Torch. It means so much to me. It was a great Mushoku Monday last week. Obviously very emotional for me. Just the stories itself there about family and making a massive mistake. All that stuff just really hit. It was a really good chapter, which is going to make doing the tier list placement for this one especially difficult. I find this one is probably going to be a difficult one for me to place. I want to read these next two chapters, finish up the Mushoku Monday, and then I'm going to decide at that point, because as per usual, whenever I do my notes and break things down, I don't like sit there and analyze it. So I might have missed something. So we'll see. But I think it's going to be a difficult one for me. Honestly, I think it's going to be a difficult one for me. But we'll get in that when we get into that. Let's just start it off. Let's kick it off. Chapter 11. Number 4. They finished meeting each Demon King. All of them promised to ally with Rudius and sign contracts just in case. Etof's name was really handy. Things were going a bit too well. Geese's continued silence was beginning to creep out Rudius. There was also no interference from the man god. Rudius returned home regularly to check up on his family, but there was no sign of meddling there either. He even went through all the information gathered by the mercenary band across the world, but nothing stirred his doubts. That had to mean that whatever Geese was plotting, nothing Rudius was up to interfered with them. Maybe the letter was a bluff, and his scheme was different. But what that meant in the long term, Ruiz had no idea. For the time being, Ruiz had no choice but to stay the course he had set. Yeah, that is technically a question mark there. Like, every time he goes somewhere, there's always the assumption there that the man god's going to interfere. He's going to get in the way or something. But what he's kind of saying here is that I'm doing all this stuff. I'm putting all these call-outs for Geese. I'm trying to find him, actively have all these kingdoms looking for him. I'm doing my own recruiting, and I've yet to run into him. I've yet to run into a problem here. Everything that Rudius is doing right now should be the concern of the man god, should be a concern to Geese, but they're not interfering. It obviously does indicate to me, especially as we, get another look into Geese right now, that yes, the man god's sort of seemingly plotting this whole thing for him to recruit people to get stronger without running into Rudius. Like, purposely, the man god is guiding Geese not to interfere with Rudius, because if he crosses path with him, he's not going to be able to build up this group that he's building. If he runs into him at any point right now, it's going to stop everything and cause a big problem for them to build up strength. Essentially acknowledging that he can't defeat Rudius right now. Geese's whereabouts were shrouded in mystery. It seemed the only way to find him was to ask Kishirika. With wanted posters out for her, it was only a matter of time before they found her. In the meantime, Rudius decided to make inroads to his next target. He was heading to the Sword Sanctum to see the sword god, Galfalion. That's not good. That's not good. Again, assuming that was who Geese was talking to. Assuming that was the case. Orsid said that he was a good-natured guy whose hobby was collecting rare swords. He did have a lot of swords. Edis, however, said that he wasn't the type of man who listened. Reese met the Sword King Nenafarian before. I don't know if that's a 7 Seas WTF moment or if that's on purpose. I would have to actually go back and check previously. Right here, they're basically stating that Galfalion's name is with an L. And now, of course, yes, we acknowledge the fact that in Japanese, technically, right here, L and R is the same, but why would you translate it and type it out in English, having Galfalion be L and Nina Farian be an R? It makes it seem like they're not related. But he expected Gal to be cut from a similar mold as Atof. I don't know why. Depending on how things went, Rudius might end up having to use his magic armor again. Rudius wanted people with him who could fight if things ended up like that. However, his destination was full of people comparable to Edis and Gilane's skills. They wouldn't stay on the sidelines like Atof's personal guard if their boss was being taken down. Yeah, true. I mean, she specifically has them on the sidelines. He'd have to fight a horde of Saint tier swordsmen. I mean, higher than that. There was Emperor ones there. The thought of it made Rudius' stomach hurt. Edis would come, but who else? Maybe he could get Ghislaine from Ariel. That'd be cool. Yeah, if he's going to meet Galfanion, I think he needs to bring Ghislaine. Not that Ghislaine's going to have any sort of, like, extra pull on him, but yeah, technically he would listen to her a lot more than just a random stranger. So she would offer something, not that he'd completely trust her. My dear, if you don't hurry up and finish, I can't wash up. Yeah, sorry, I'm eating. Nom nom. Rudius is currently at home, eating dinner with his wife. You better not leave the peppers. What? Not the peppers too? You know I don't like them. You eat them. You're a grown-up. So you have to be brave and eat things that you don't like. His long-suffering wife was still only 5 years old. Their house didn't have a roof, and the plates were made of rock. On them was mud dumplings and mud gravy. If only he earned more from his work to afford better. Gosh. This part. Goo. Oh, Norn, you're hungry again. Mommy just fed you. I suppose you can have some more. Their daughter was 15, nearly 16. This year, she would graduate from the University of Magic. That meant organizing all kinds of events that kept her perpetually busy. But perhaps she still missed her mommy's milk sometimes. Yay, thanks, Mommy. Oh, no, you're the baby, so you should only speak baby talk. Oh, goo goo. Their daughter was still breastfeeding, so it made sense she wasn't talking yet. Woof woof. Woof woof. Aisha, are you hungry too? Fine, I'll feed you. Here's your dinner. It's a secret, okay? Their pet dog was 15 years too. Their pet dog was 15 too. She was a career-focused woman juggling house duties and her job at the mercenary company. But in the end, even she was a slave to her stomach, just like a dog. Ruff. Once you're finished, you go play with Norn. I just completely have a mental image of all this playing out. Like Aisha over there, like, ruff, ruff. Norn eating her food. Ruff, ruff, woof, gaku. What, that tickles. The dog getting overexcited like she was in heat, flung her arms around the wife and daughter, licking their faces. What a happy family. Rudius wanted to join in too, I'm sure. Oh, let Dada in too. No, Dada doesn't do that. My wife. His wife corrected them. This sounded like an example of domestic discrimination. Maybe under the surface, their marriage was actually loveless. He was even more so wrong that he didn't get to be the pet. He wanted to lick and hug everyone too. There's those inappropriate random comments by Rudius that it's like, I do kind of question at this point. Let's just take a step back. Let's take a step back from the idea of like the perviness or the not perviness. But the question mark is there, really. At this point in Rudius' life, is he really that bad? I mean, that's like the whole joke that I was making about with the whole situation when Nina went to the Oscar Kingdom and she ended up spotting Rudius and she left. And they had a little brief moment there where he was talking about the idea of, well, Edis was saying that he wanted to lick her legs. And he's just like he did her. And it's like, I could totally see him making a comment like that, but I don't necessarily think it's like, I don't think at this point that he's like doing that because it's a lustful thing. I don't think so. I honestly don't. But it's one of those things that you do have to acknowledge that based on his history, it doesn't look good. Like, it's like, he obviously changed at this point. He's obviously changed at this point. We get so much of his inner dialogue where he has changed and he doesn't think about these things anymore. But I still think that he does them, and it still sounds super pervy because it's almost like it's still borrowed from it. I guess the best way to put it, it's still borrowed language from his past self. And so it doesn't seem as innocent. You hate me, Rudius sniffled. No, I don't. Dada is an amazing person. Even though he hardly ever comes home, and he can't ever cuddle the baby, he still loves them very much. It's not his fault. Amazing was all and well, but he'd rather be here, near them all. His fault or not, he wanted to cuddle his children too. All that love breeds warmth, and in that warmth, there's happiness. Yeah, this is kind of one of those sad things that kind of keeps repeating over and over again. And I'll admit that it's repetitive, that he keeps kind of every single time he's at home, he doesn't stay there for very long. And then this conversation gets brought up over and over again that he wants to be here, but he can't be here. But that's going to be in his mind. Every time he goes home and he can't be there for long, that's going to be in his mind. It's a guilt. He has a massive guilt with this, which does technically play into what comes up. Rudy, could I have a word? Behind him, his mother-in-law, peering out the window of the neighboring house, Well, enough for Game House. It was Sylphie. Sure. As Rudy stood, he felt a tug on his sleeve. Lucy looking up at him with anxiety in her face. Are you going to go back to work, Dada? This all started an hour earlier. Reese was brooding over who to take to the Sword Sanctum, or possibly just getting Orsted to make an appearance. No. I don't know. Would Edis have stopped in that situation? Would have stopped him in that situation? I'm not sure if she would have picked up on that. I know, and yes, Edis is going to know that he wanted Orsted dead. He wanted to fight Orsted really badly, and that's why that worked so well for him to train her. But I don't know if she would have stopped him. Like, if Rudy's brought that up, she'd be like, don't want to do that. Probably a bad thing there. As well as how to go about negotiating and whether to show up prepared to fight. That was when Lucy showed up with Norn in tow. She had hidden behind Norn as she hesitantly asked to play. He agreed right away, brushing aside all the Sword Sanctum stuff. No, Lucy, I'm just going to talk to Mommy. I want you to stay. I'll come back as soon as we're finished, sweetie. You play with your big sisters until then. Okay? Okay. Lucy's mouth puckered up as she looked at the ground. It took all he had to tear himself away. If he could, he played house all day long. But his real wife was calling him now. He washed his hands and then went to the living room and sat next to Sylphie. Okay, what's the matter? Well, it's just, you're busy at the moment, right, Rudy? So I don't want to pressure you, but I have to ask beforehand. I mean, you're about to set off to the Sword Sanctum any day now, right? Yeah, as soon as everything's ready. So another 2 or 3 days. Edis would be going, and he was looking for others who spoke the language of the Sword Style Gang. Yeah, there's a specific language only spoken by the Sword God style. Maybe Isolde. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't see Isolde having any sort. I mean, if he wants an ally that's going to be strong, then yeah, for sure. Go to Ariel and say, I need your help. Hey, Isolde, can you come with me? I'm not really entirely sure if she'd not betray him if she had a chance. That's the question mark. I mean, it seemed like Edis and Isolde get along very well, and I think Isolde has, for the most part, put a lot of that behind her, so I'm not sure that she would betray Edis. I don't think she would, but she might. How long will you be gone? I'm not sure, but probably somewhere between 10 days and a month. We'll drop in to see a few other people in the area, I'm guessing. He also made plan to make connections there. There was supposedly some renowned swordsmen and smiths there. Right, okay, so I guess you won't be back in time. In time for what? The baby. Oh, it's that time already, huh? He hadn't forgot. Just didn't know exactly when. He hadn't forgot. Sylphie was always in his thoughts. He just didn't know the due date. Do you want to touch my belly? Touching her stomach, he could feel the pulse of life inside of her. It was strange, almost like she had 2 hearts. Which she did. She currently had 2 lives within her. And soon, one of them would break away to exist on its own. That was actually interesting there, because when I read that, he said, like, it was almost like she had 2 hearts within her. And I thought, based on him touching right there, there was 2 hearts in there. That she currently had 2 lives within her. And so I'm like, she had 2 lives within her. So I'm like, she has twins? Like, she's going to have twins? No, I don't know that they would actually be able to tell. I don't see how they would be able to tell at all. I mean, we, as a technologically advanced society, we have ways of finding out. I mean, the idea of being able to see inside the belly, that's a big way. I don't know if they actually have a method that way, unless the doctors might have a demon eye that lets them see through things. There was an X-ray vision one. Or maybe a magic that could do that. But then it says one was going to break away, and I'm like, well, the other one's not going to stay in there, so he's obviously saying that one is hers. Lucy and the other's new little brother or sister will be here soon. So you won't be here for the birth this time, will you, Rudy? Yes, I will. I'll be home. But Rudy, I'll be here. After being told that their baby would be born soon, he couldn't brush it off and wish her good luck. If he did that, there'd be no point in the work that he was doing. Very true. Very, very true. I mean, his constant problem is that if he could have what he wanted, it would be for the man god to leave him alone and him enjoy his life. Just enjoy his life with his family. But unfortunately, he's got to keep doing this stuff in order to protect his family. And yes, the constant fear that if he doesn't help Orsted's going to abandon him and the man god's going to get him. All that stuff is constantly in his head. But yeah, there is the argument to be made that despite the fact that he has to keep moving, what's the point in doing all this if you never do this? It's like the ongoing issue of the breadwinner of the home. They're always at work. They're always working. And why are they working? In order to provide for the family. But what good is it if they're never there? You're raising up a family, but you're not ever there to enjoy it. Thank you, Rudy. I love you. I love you too. Sylphie closed her eyes, so he moved his hand over her shoulder and pulled her close. Times like these were when he felt truly happy. There's one other thing. Well, I remember. Before the baby's born, I wonder if you could think of a name. You said that you were going to when you went to Millis, and you still haven't told me. Rudius slid down onto the floor to sit with his legs folded under. Whap, whap, whap. Rudius ended up staying home for a little while longer. His sense of urgency was as strong as ever. But now he was worried. He bowed his head to Sylphie, admitting that he hadn't thought of a name. She wasn't angry or annoyed. Instead, went quiet and pale. He could see the betrayal on her face. It vanished again in an instant as she said, "Oh, Rudy, you better start thinking now then." Wow. Wow, this is so cool. Reading this the second time, I see this completely different. The first time I read this, my initial thoughts when I read through this was, here it is again. Rudius immediately assumes the worst in his wives. He immediately assumes the worst. Right now, he thinks that she is so mad at him. And it gets into it in a minute here. It goes down that spiral of how he's like, I betrayed her. There's this boiling up anger in her that she's just going to get fed up with me. And again, a lot has to do with the diary. There, Sylphie left him. And I believe, based on my interpretation of reading that diary segment, was that because it made the emphasis on what she left behind, that she was leaving Rudius. Not that she was just going over there really quickly and coming back, because she didn't say that she'll be back or whatever. She just left, up and left. So I get why he has that feeling that this could be that breaking point for her. Like, she's boiled it up and it's the boiling point. It's about to go over the edge. She's going to blow up on me. This is it. She's sick of me. I failed this one thing. She wanted me to do this one thing and I failed. But now reading this again and knowing what happens at the end of this chapter, I wonder if right here, she knows it's going to be a boy. I think she knows it. I think she might have a feeling as a mother, she might know that it's a boy. Or just in general, she's afraid of what's to come. I wonder if right here, her anxiety and her buildup, the reason that she's pale, the pale is the key thing here. Why would Sylphie, in response to the name, even if she was mad at Rudius, even if it was an aspect of feeling like he couldn't do this one thing I asked of him, I do all this stuff for him and I asked one thing. I wanted him to do one thing. I'm taking care of the damn family. I'm taking care of the kids. I'm not complaining. I'm doing everything he needs. I am doing everything possible to make the one that I love happy. And he can't do this one thing for me. One thing for me. Why would she turn pale? Pale sticks out like a sore thumb to me. I think it's because she's afraid of somebody else naming him. I think right here she knows it's a boy and she wants him to name it. I think that's what's going on here. I love that. I love the second read through here and seeing this kind of stuff. It is kind of one of the few benefits to actually doing this after taking notes and not just doing like a live read. Oh, Rudy, you better start thinking now then. But he'd seen it. Crushing disappointment. Right afterwards, it came to him that he'd exhausted her patience with him. For the past half year, Sylphie had believed in him, sure that, even with being far away, he couldn't wait for the birth of the child, that he'd celebrate happily with her after the event. That's what he thought that he'd been doing too, of course. He had every intention of it. Obviously, he hadn't shown it through his actions. Dada, what's wrong? Does your tummy hurt? No, sweetie. I just hurt Mama's feelings a little bit. Then, you gotta say sorry. Lucy was right, but he didn't think that an apology was what Sylphie wanted. It wasn't just a surface-level sorry she was after, but something more complicated, less clearly defined. She wanted peace of mind. The thing is, Lucy, even if I say sorry to Mama now, she'll worry that I might hurt her feelings again. But you won't, will you? I won't. I'll do my best not to. Then Mama will forgive you. Kids are so precious. Kids are so precious. It's always that concept of how simple children see things, that they can kind of give a little bit of clarity there. Like, you're overcomplicating things. Just don't do it again. Simple, right? Sylphie understood from the start, knew how much time he spent away, that every now and then he'd forget something. That didn't make it easier for her to swallow, though. She'd held back her temper for a long time. The time he'd gone off to find Paul after she got pregnant. The time that he married Roxy. The time that he married Edis. She never blew up at him. And she was always understanding. She let him do as he pleased. When he said that he hadn't thought of a name, she held back then too. She must have forced back what she really wanted to say. And she kept doing it. He kept making her do it. They were fine for now. But one day, she'd reached the limit of what she could put up with. Like a glass of water filled past the brim. One day, she wouldn't be able to hold anymore. And then when that happened, he'd lose her. It'd come out of the blue, just like in the future diary. He didn't want that. It'd come out of the blue just like the... It would come out of the blue, just like in the feature diary. I don't know. The wording there just a little bit too, what? It just happened? Like, out of the blue just is like an unexpected thing. Based on the feature diary, she had every damn right to walk out that door. Now, yes, I make the argument she should have brought Lucy with her, but then there's the argument there that, yes, they're going to somewhere dangerous, but then at the same time, leaving it with a drunk guy that's sleeping around and is completely in a massively depressed state and just is wanting it to all end is difficult. Yes, he has Aisha there, but yeah, I mean, there's arguments across the board here, but the main key point here is that this wasn't a shock. This wasn't out of the blue. There was a build-up. Rudius didn't want that. He wanted to be with Sylphie for as long as he lived. He thought that feeling was mutual, but that was about what he wanted. Even if she ran out of patience with him in the end, he wanted to give her peace of mind, here and now. He just had to work out how to do that. Rudius was stewing endlessly over this question when Sylphie went into labor a mere week later. This stuff gets crazy. Again, this is that diary. I think of everything. I think Sylphie in that diary is literally the one thing that still sticks with Rudius to this day. Like, I think most of the stuff with the diary has sort of been left behind. Yes, there's the rule about the rats. There is the rule about the rats. There is still a strict rule about those rats. Keep them rats away from the house. Burn them, take them out, dispose of them, all that stuff. Don't leave food out. Don't snack on things that have been left out. All that stuff is still rules in the Grey Rat family. So that definitely sticks around. But I think the thing that kind of sticks with him the most, that he still keeps calling back to, is what Sylphie did in that diary. And it still haunts him to this day. Like the fact that, and I think that's a good thing. I think there's a level here that there is a good thing that he is sort of acknowledging he can lose something. He's not getting complacent with Sylphie. That's a good thing. Because yes, the sad reality with a character like Sylphie, a person like Sylphie, is that she is so passive and she's so giving and she never pushes back at all. She's super passive. The problem there is that at some point Rudius can get complacent and believe that she'll accept anything, and thus that turns into an abuse. That turns into negligence on his part as a husband. He's not going to give her love because he assumes she already knows. I don't need to kiss Sylphie because she already knows I love her. I don't need to give her attention because she already knows I love her. She'll accept it. I can push and push and push and push and she'll keep accepting it. That's wrong. And I think this diary gives him that constant reminder in his mind that there was a future where she did give up on me. I did push the limits too much. That I can lose her. That's a good thing. But at the same time, I think it also creates doubt where doubt shouldn't be there. Like right here, he's just going full-blown the idea that I forgot this name and now she's going to leave me. She might leave me now because I forgot to think of a name. And again, I do believe it's not... Again, the pale part sticks out to me. I don't see her being pale because he forgot the name. Pale in the face means like a dread there. There's a dread there. There's a fear. The whole time, Sylphie acted like nothing was wrong. Maybe she really didn't think something was wrong. She wasn't the type to hold grudges over things like this. Maybe she'd been a bit disappointed at the time, but hadn't thought of it as that big of a deal. Reese didn't think that he'd been acting awkward either. For the past week, he'd been with Sylphie every moment he could, as he frantically tried to decide on a name. He noted down every one that came to him, and they discussed it together. Maybe to her, it looked like he was trying hard, but he really wanted to try as hard as he could. Then, her labor pain started. Edis knew what to do and ran for the doctor, while Lilia and Aisha got ready. Roxy stood by to provide healing magic if necessary, and Leo took the kids to another room. Rhea stayed at Sylphie's side the whole time. Soon after, Edis returned with the doctor. He looked a bit dazed, clasped under Edis's arm. I got him. I brought him. But he got to work quickly, preparing. They were all used to this. It was Sylphie's second, and Rudius' fourth. Counting Aisha and Norn, Rudius had been present for 5 births. If you included his past life, there was a few more. The doctor was experienced. No one here was new to this. Everyone was relaxed. Everything was going smoothly, as it should. Flag it, man. Just flag it. The head had just come into view when the doctor let out a troubled sigh. In an instant, Rudius' reassurance faded and fear raced through him. Childbirth was still childbirth, no matter how experienced they were. He shouldn't have got complacent. Was it a breech birth? No. He could see the head. Surely not a stillbirth. That got me, dude. That was a... I'm not saying it's a fake out. It's more of a thing of like, this is what a person would be thinking in childbirth is thinking of all the what ifs at the time. Like the anxieties and fears are just flooding around that mind. What's going on? What's going on? Like the doctor's sighing is not good. That's the one thing, the one profession you can't sigh, look troubled, or make mistakes in, is it being a doctor. Weathermen can do that. Weathermen are allowed to do that. Doctors are not. Roxy stood up with staff in hand. Healing magic? No, that won't be necessary. The birth continued. Nothing seemed to go wrong. The baby's cry broke the restless silence. A strong little voice. It wasn't a stillbirth. The doctor didn't say anything, just held the baby up. It looked fine to Rudius. He honestly didn't think anything went wrong, but the doctor's face was tense, and Rudius knew why. He'd known as soon as he saw the baby, why the doctor sighed, why he was so tense. It was the hair. Now this is interesting because they kind of mentioned later on there's people in this area that have green hair. It's not unheard of. This isn't an oddity. Now, granted, you couldn't argue that those people might have some sort of discrimination, but why would the doctor specifically sigh? If he's seen it, as a doctor, he's probably seen it. My only thought here is that possibly the doctor knew based on talking to Sylphie that she was afraid of it. That's the thing that I'm assuming here, is the doctor's probably he's been meeting with her, or she's been meeting with him on a regular basis probably, as their doctor. He's probably been talking about the whole situation. She probably at some point mentioned, I'm just really anxious. Why are you anxious? I'm really afraid that they're going to have green hair. I had green hair when I was actually born, and I'm really afraid of that. So that's probably why he's responding that way. Everyone stared in silence. Sylphie's second child had a head of green hair, just like Sylphie back in the day. I want to get into it now, but let's get to the rest of the context here. I really want to get into it now, but let's get into the context here. No way. Oh no, it can't be. Roxy, Edis, Aisha, and Lilia were all totally unperturbed. They had no context for why Sylphie was reacting like this. They weren't lacking for kids with exciting hair colors in the house. It's like we just got the whole Pokemon farm going on everywhere. Plus Reserved and everyone else around here had green hair. Yeah, I don't think they've ever mentioned this before. Yes, Reserved. Everybody in the house likes Reserved. I mean, yes, Roxy had her initial fears of him as a Superb and all the legends and everything like that. She was terrified that way. But everybody here has had a good experience with Reserved. He has helped them in some way. And some people here really like him. Edis loves him. Aisha probably likes him a lot because he helped her traveling up north. They all like him. So that makes sense right there. Right here it says, plus Reserved and everyone else around here had green hair. Kind of indicating that there's a lot of people around these parts that have green hair. Again, not to say that they don't have discrimination upon them. No one would bat an eye at green hair. Sylphie, though. Sylphie was a different story. Congratulations, it's a boy. Sylphie stared despairingly at the baby that was being held by the doctor. He held the baby out to her, and she accepted it. But she kept glancing around at a loss for what to do. Sylphie. Reese had to celebrate. There was no reason not to. He needed to express his joy. Then he had to reassure her that everything was going to be okay. He smiled to give her a peace of mind, or as much as he could have at the moment anyways. You're okay. It's all okay. Thank you so much. Rudy, I'm sorry. There's nothing to be sorry for. Look, whoa! As Rhea started again, her batteries seemed to run out, and she slumped. Seeing the baby slide off the bed, Rudius dived to grab him. Roxy and the doctor rushed forward, pushing Rudius aside. Rudy, get out of the way. Sylphie had passed out. Rudius stared blankly as the two of them checked her vitals. She's okay. She's only fainted. The room relaxed. Rudius stood there dazed with the baby in his arms. Aisha came over with a blanket. Here, big brother, wrap him in this. Oh, yeah. Sylphie had been worried. She had been wrapped up in an indistinct cloud of anxiety. And now, as if to prove her worries right, her baby had green hair. Yeah, Rudius is right here kind of tying that up. That this whole thing where he was making it out like she's mad at him, she's boiling it up, she's gonna pop, it's gonna happen, here's the future diary, it's gonna happen, she's gonna leave me, she's sick of me, she's sick and tired of me. Right here, I think he's finally making that connection that I made by the second read. Oh, it's about the baby. And again, based on it just being a response to the name, I think she knew it was going to be a boy. I honestly think that she knew it was going to be a boy. Or it could be a thing of her remembering that, recalling that, and going, what if it's a boy? I want him to name it. I want Rudius to name it. But yeah, I think a lot of the actual anxiety is, of course, going to be, will it end up having green hair? She did that the first time. With the first baby. With Lucy. It was literally, thank God, not green hair. Thank God, not green hair. Even though Rudius all the time says how much he loves it, that is one of those oddities. That is literally one of those oddities. Rudius has stated several times he loves the color green. He colored the damn roof green. He loves the color green. Sylphie had green hair. Rejered had green hair. Rudius has said several times, I love the color green. I know that she has a problem with it. She has those fears and that trauma, but I love it. So it is odd. It's interesting to see that despite how much Rudius loves the color and how much Sylphie wants to make Rudius happy and wants to love him and give him whatever he wants, this is a no-go. This is the one thing I don't want. That, yeah, I technically could give him a baby with green hair and he would probably love that green hair on that baby. But no, I can't do this. Again, just like the previous chapter. This is the volume of let's bring back trauma. Let's bring back trauma. The only one that we didn't do was Edis. We didn't bring back a trauma for Edis, that I remember. But yeah, this is hers. This is the same thing for her. Yeah, you can probably brush it off as like everything's fine. It's fine here. Again, Lada's gonna be fine here. But in her eyes, in her mind, all she can think about is what I went through. Sylphie right here is thinking what I went through. It's a different environment. Again, Lada's a different environment here. Lucy's brother is going to be different. But she doesn't see that. She sees what I went through. I don't want a child to have to go through what I did. Even though I would argue Sylphie spent less time in it, but it seems to be significant enough that it seems like up until the point that Rudius met her, her life was miserable. But then quickly after that, the displacement incident happens. She lost that green hair and she's never dealt with that problem ever since then. She has lived a majority of her life, over 70% of her life has been away from that, but it's enough. It's just like Rudius, because I always question that aspect about how Rudius has been in this world for 20 years, 22 I think at this point, yet he's still recalling things from his previous life extremely vividly. It begs the question. I think every single person drops that trauma after different times. Some people can get over it quickly. Some people will never get over it. Some people will adapt, accepting it in a sense. Some people let it roll over them. Some people take control over it. Based on what type of trauma it is, and based on their circumstances and the type of person, they all handle it differently. Here, this still haunts her severely enough that in a happy moment, again, like with the whole thing with Roxy, in a happy moment, childbirth, I gave Rudius another child. Happiness should be in this room. No. Terror. I poisoned that. That's really what it looks like. That's like the sorry. Rudy, I'm sorry. I poisoned your child. I put that poison in your child. It's sad. But, yes, that brings up the question mark here. Not only is it a boy, but, which, yes, I completely forgot about, by the way. I completely forgot about, at this point, I completely forgot about that whole aspect. I should have known the moment it said it's a boy, I should have known, but I completely forgot about it, being truthful. But both a boy and green hair, which they've said before is a Laplace aspect, or they said it was possibly a Laplace aspect, is the green hair. Interesting. Which, yes, goes into the whole theory about the whole situation, that the idea that the reason why Petagoose wants him to bring the boy there is because there's a possibility that he thinks that that's going to be Laplace. Bring it to me, I'll name it. Are you giving me a choice here? Like, there's a fear there, what's going to happen? And we're going to find out, apparently in the next volume. Sylphie had been worried, and now to prove Rory's right, her baby had green hair. He wasn't sure if she'd passed out from relief or stress reaching its peak. Relief of having it done, but at the same time, and it being alive, and then that stress, and then this last gut punch of the green hair. It's like, I think it's a culmination of everything. Had he done more to ease her mind, maybe they could have avoided this. Maybe she wouldn't have been worried about the baby having green hair. Reese felt guilty. But I think he's been doing a great job of this. Yes, reassuring her personally, he probably should have done more. But he has been trying to get rid of what is the core here? What is the core here? It is Superds, the green hair, the gem on the forehead. That was what the core thing was there. They were bullying Sylphie back here because they thought that they were saying that she was a Superd. He has been trying to get rid of the global state of discrimination against the Superds for a long time. He's been doing a lot. Reese felt guilty, but he was also overjoyed. Sure, the baby had green hair, but it wasn't a big deal anymore. Nothing had changed. Here was his fourth child, and he'd make sure to think of a name. All of a sudden, somebody showed up to give it to him. All of a sudden, Reese heard Edis's voice pipe up from the corner of the room. What the hell are you doing here? Rias thought that she was berating him for being useless. Feeling like he'd been punched in the gut, Rias turned. Huh? She wasn't talking to him. There was another shocking presence in the room. Armanfi? Behind Rudius was one of the 12 familiars of the armored Dragon King, Petagus. Armanfi, the Bright. God, let's just stop. Let's just go right into 23 right now. This was literally a moment of like, okay, pick up the next volume. Pick up the next volume. Come on, let's go. Let's go. Behind Rudius was one of the 12 familiars. His eyes were fixed on Rudius. No, they were on the baby. Rudius Grey Rat, Lord Petagus summoned you to the floating fortress. And that's chapter 11. That's it. That's it. That's it. Nothing else. We're going to leave it on that cliffhanger. Rudius' story is going to be left on a cliffhanger. Y'all got to wait until the following Mushoku Monday. Sorry. Watch volume 23 opens up and it literally is like, okay, now let's go take some time with Ghislaine or something for a while. Or now we're going to suddenly have a Zenoba perspective for the next like 5 chapters. I would totally take it, by the way, but yeah, that would be difficult. So yeah, that's finally coming to head. Again, that was a lot to do with like the question mark when they first arrived there. And again, for context here, they came into Petagus' fortress. This is the first time they came there. They went under the archway and those sparkles happened. And that was seemingly an indication of the Laplace aspect because both Rudius and Sylphie had it. And then once it was whispered into Petagus' ear that they both had this reaction, they immediately asked, you have a child, is it a boy? When you have a boy, bring it to me. And now, since we've gotten to the whole indication of the Laplace aspects all kind of coming together and birthing into a child that will essentially be the reincarnation of Laplace, yeah, the assumption there was if she has a boy, if these two individuals who have aspects have a boy, there's a possibility they could be Laplace. Petagus is looking for Laplace. So there's the question mark there, if that's possibly going to be that route. And I think they said before, if it's going to be a female, it wouldn't be Laplace. Like, it has to be a male, I think is what they kind of indicated at some point, if I remember correctly. God, this stuff is going way back. This is going way back. Well, like, volume 14, question mark? Anyways, so yeah, this is going to be the point which, what is Petagus going to... The question mark is, will they go? That's a good question mark. Is Rudius going to go? I think Rudius will go. I think he's going to trust Petagus. I don't know that he want to bring the child, but I think he'll go. I think there is a side of this where they don't have a choice, but that could be a good question mark. Would Rudius, fearing that Petagus will harm the child, because I think that was in his mind at the time, he was afraid of Petagus harming his child. Will this turn into Rudius literally saying, no, we're not going, and then Petagus comes dropping down, and then Rudius is having to get Orsted's help, and they have to... This is the point. This is an eventuality for Orsted, honestly. It's an eventuality that he's going to have to take down Petagus if the whole theory is correct, that he has to kill them to get the keys. It's an eventuality. Is this going to be the trigger? This is going to be the trigger that a fight with Petagus happens. I'm super curious. We're gonna have to wait. We gotta wait. This sucks. This is a bad ending point for a volume. I think Grafujin's getting a little bit of a bad habit of having these really nasty cliffhangers. Well, his last volume was Geese's thing. Now this one sucks. Anyways, extra chapter, The Monkey and the Dreaming Ute. The Dreaming Ute. Geese's perspective chapter. I will admit this one wasn't as big of a chapter as the last one, but I'm hoping that hoping I'll notice something this time around. We'll see. Geese was in a white room, floor extending forever. He liked it here. It took him back to all those years when he was a nobody, brimming with hopes and dreams, young and inexperienced, dumb as hell. He was born in a village in the south of the Demon Continent, free as a bird. Except, because he was too full of himself, he didn't think the village was good enough for him. He was cocky enough to think that he was made for greater things, so he ran away. Did he achieve great things? Nope, not one. The only skill that he picked up were things that anyone could do. Cooking, washing, cleaning. He could draw a map, negotiate, disable traps. But if you asked him how he compared to a pro, well, best not dwell on it. Jack of all trades, master of none. Makes sense. If he wasn't such a pushover, maybe he couldn't believe in himself. But the fact remained, he couldn't fight to save his life. His only purpose was to tag along after the strong, amazing types, and cover their weak points. He just had cheap tricks and quick tongue. When he was in this room, the idea of a moron like him still being alive really hit home. He wasn't going to let it end like this, though. He was going to achieve something big, something that let him face himself in a mirror. Oh, yes. I haven't had the man god's voice in so long. Oh, yes. Of course. You can't let it in like this. I know just how you feel. It was always spooky how your eyes just slipped off of him, how he's always popping up when you least expected him. But he was also a strangely comforting presence for Geese. Ever since he was back, languishing in his tiny village, the man god came to him in his dreams to give him advice. This was Geese's holy man god. Sorry to interrupt when you're wallowing in sentimentality, but am I going to get an explanation anytime soon? An explanation? What for? I'm angry. You do know that bad things will come if you don't stop avoiding my questions. Whoa there. Don't get mad. If it's an explanation you want, you gotta tell me what you want to know. What possessed you to write the letter to Rudius and Millis? Did we not discuss that your presence there was for the purpose of confirming how he fights? Oh, that old thing. That little letter where I declare my war against him, so as he'd know that I'm a disciple of the man god. But see, the reasoning behind that is a little tricky to put into words. I don't care how difficult it is. You will explain. Depending on what you say, I may have no choice but to unleash my divine wrath upon you. I thought immediately when I read this, for what? What does Geese have? I think that's great. And it really is one of those things where you kind of wonder what makes Geese continue this. Yes, it's for his own benefit. Everything, he has nothing and the man god gives him things. But there is a thing here of like, you can't threaten a guy that has nothing. Geese has nothing. The only thing you can take from Geese right now is his life. That's all he has. Ha! Your divine wrath, eh? You already did that once. Pretty sure I don't have enough to lose that much again, eh? Whatever. I'll explain. I thought a whole lot about why I did that recently, so I've got an answer all drafted up and ready to go. How very commendable of you. Right? Now get to the point. Okie dokie. Well, first of all, I made it through life with lies and deception, so I've got a kind of sense when the game is about to be up. There's a fuse on this kind of thing. An expiration date. I can just tell when a lie is about to be exposed. It's just safer to get it over and done with. Then do a runner, you know? Better than being around in the moment the boss twigged to it. The man god made a thoughtful noise. That was reason number 2, though. Reason number 2? Then what was reason number 1? That was about being true to myself. You could also call it committing myself to this. See? In the end, however I talk, I'm scared. I reckon if I had to go up against Rudius, along the way, I'd get cold feet. So, I'd leave myself an escape route. Then, if the plan went belly up, I'd have enough to say that I was never a disciple. And I could talk my way out. If the odds were against me, when the time came, I could turn traitor and go back to the boss's side. If I was ready to back out any moment, that'd be enough to turn a winning position into a losing one. Don't you think? I do. Unfortunately, I can't fight for nothing. But time and time again, I've seen folks dive in knowing they might never come back. Paul and Ghislaine were like that. Even Emily sometimes. That's the only way you win. And you can't do it if you get cold feet, because you're afraid to die. A strike only becomes a killing blow when you're ready to die, when you throw yourself into it. That's how you bring down mighty enemies, as far as I can see. So, I wanted to force myself to be like that too. Interesting stuff. The first part, the reason 2. That makes a lot of sense for me, actually, in the idea that he's seen it coming. And what do we see at that moment? Rudius caught on at that point. Rudius was going back to see Geese. He was looking for Geese at that moment. And then, he left the letter. Here it is. And that told everything. And even in the letter, he's literally saying, you figured it out, right? Oh, God, I hope you figured it out, because I'm telling you in a minute. Like, even in the letter, Geese was saying, you figured it out, didn't you? You figured it out, didn't you? Rudius was figuring it out. At that moment, he was figuring out. Geese felt it coming. He knew it was coming. So he figured, might as well tell him. There's no point in him trying to keep up the charade when Rudius is going to confront him. And yes, I would argue, based on his previous experience, Rudius having a stone cannon pointed at his face, he knew that Rudius probably, at this point, would be not just holding up to his face, he'd probably firing. Geese knew it was coming, and he got the hell out of there. The second one, I think, makes more sense in the idea of why go all out? Why go as far as to say that? You could have just ran. Why not just say that? Why not just say that you were, not a disciple and then run away? Or just run away, and if Rudius ever catches you again, say, no, I was never a man god disciple. Whatever, what are you talking about? Basically, just run and don't put a definitive bullseye on yourself. The letter literally says, I am, not leaving it to question mark for Rudius. If he just left, Rudius would just have the question mark. Is he? Is he? I think he is. He ran away. That's pretty good proof, but not definitive. The letter says definitively. I know, based on experience watching swordsmen fight, these warriors fight, go all in. or you're going to lose.
And so that's why you went to the trouble of leaving him a letter? Pretty much. I can't say I understand, but no matter. From my vantage point, I must question whether your willingness to die affects the bigger picture. It concerns me. Whoa there. Look who's talking. Who's the one who came sniveling at me like, I can't win, help me? Yes, and it's precisely because of that I'm being so careful. I'm relying on you. And just like you wanted, I'm getting more and more people on your side to bump off Rudius and Orsted. I'm all in. True.
It's so hard bouncing back between these two voices. They're so distinct, but so altered. It is so hard switching back and forth. This recording's going to suck to edit.
True. You do have a perfect recruitment rate so far, even if only it's because I told you their weak points. From their childhoods to their desires, to the right time to approach them. I mean, okay, it hurts a bit when you put it like that. But hey, I'm still the one doing all the talking. At the end of the day, a teensy bit more trust would be appreciated. Understandably so. I do trust you, but we're running out of time.
Interesting. We're running out of time. What does the man god see right there? I am curious. This might go into my theory out the idea that that Laplace might be coming back sooner. If Laplace is at all tied in with this whole situation, which it is. Because if Orsted kills Laplace, he gets that key, and I'm pretty sure he's going to go around and get the rest of the keys, finish it up, and then he's going to be right at Man God's door. I think the Man God sees it's coming sooner than what Orsted believes it will. Or he could just feel that Rudius is getting allies faster and he's going to overcome him.
I get that. It's important that we do it the right day, yeah?
The right day. Damn! This is a lot of stuff that I didn't catch the first time, kind of skimming through and breaking it down. It's important that we do it on the right day. The only thing I can think here is if it's the right day, it could be a day that specifically, it could be like an eclipse thing where one individual might not have enough power because of the eclipse, that kind of whole scenario. It could specifically be a day where destinies are a little messed up. Like right now with Rudius, what's going on right now is the birth of a child. There could be points in which the destiny is going to be a little bit more flexible. Something's going to happen here soon that's going to be a large-scale conflict that he needs to be a part of, and thus it'll make things a lot easier for them. Man, that opens up a massive can of worms there.
Yes, he is Rudius's weakness, so we have no choice but to use him. I have no doubt that it'll work.
Yeah?
I wonder. No plan's ever guaranteed to succeed, you know?
Right there, it's bringing up a specific person. It's important that we do it on the right day. Yes, he is Rudius's weakness. So we have no choice but to use him. Somebody is Rudius's weakness. That would make me believe that it's... You can say it's somebody that has an ability that will definitely beat Rudius. Like Rudius doesn't have a counter for something. Or it could be specifically somebody that, in them being recruited or killed, will ruin him. Rizard? It's saying he, so it's got to be a male. The only two people I can think of is Rizard or Soldat. It could be Zenoba or Cliff, but they're kind of in range of Rudius. It could be them, but it's still saying specifically on the right day and a specific person. I think it might be Rizard, because later on he talks about Rizard, that there's this person that wants to take him down or whatever, and it seems to be a lot of emphasis on him. I think they're going to go after Rizard. I think it's twofold here. It will hurt Rudius a lot, but additionally, they're going to assume that he's going to recruit Rizard. He probably will get Rizard on his side, but it could just be specifically recruiting somebody that will counter Rudius, counter his magic armor or something, possibly.
I'm well aware of that. Ever since Orsa got involved, all my plans have gone awry. I'm sick of it. Even so, I'd rather get as many as I can on our side beforehand, especially the next guy. He's a big one. Maybe on the same level as the first guy, or even stronger. Do you think you could do it? Come on. I'll rustle up some reason for him to fight. Get him worked up, then sneak around a bit, setting things up behind the scenes. Before you know it, you got one reliable ally ready to go. Just like the others, right? Good. I don't know what I'd do without you. Keep flattering me like you mean it. Anyways, where am I going tomorrow? And how do I get there? You better have something good in store here. I'm counting on you. Yes, of course. Tomorrow, when you wake, travel due east, then wait in the shadows of a boulder. You may sleep there if you like. Then move due west again when the sun sets. You will arrive at a village at daybreak. Go to the only tavern in the village. If you do so, you will surely find him. Surely, 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 surely. With the man god's words echoing in his ears, Geese blacked out. Yeah, there's a lot of massive question marks there. Again, I think a lot of this has to do with Rejerd. I really do. And I do believe what they're going to come up here in a minute is going to be the North God, the one that Reus wanted to recruit. It seems like it would be a North God, and the idea of how they're dressed. So, and I think he mentioned something about, I think Orsted mentioned that there's a possibility that like one of the places he could be was like the conflict zone, and then sometimes he was in Begarit continent. It's like, there you go. Geese awoke, cracked his neck, and checked all of his parts were working. No tingling in the limbs, no indigestions, no weird growths on his skin. He was hungry, but fit as a fiddle. He exited his tent, checked his direction, his normal routine. The desert stretched out before him, as far as the eye could see. This was the Begarit continent, the second most dangerous place after the Demon Continent. It was swarming with monsters, just as vicious as any on the Demon Continent, and the environment was unforgiving. Geese was raised on the Demon Continent, and even found himself thinking this is the second most dangerous. He got why. There was fewer monsters overall, plus the eastern and northern regions were pretty safe. Things like that tricks you into thinking the Begarit continent wasn't so bad. Meanwhile, you can drop into the heart of any region on the Demon Continent, and it was packed full of danger. There's not a safe corner in the whole place. Of course, there was no denying that either place was habitable by those truly determined. Packing up his stuff, he set off west. The desert was empty, but that was just on the surface. Beneath the sand lay swarms of worms that would swallow you whole, and scorpions with poison on their tails that could slowly melt you into soup. There was also monsters that preyed on those guys. Those were even more fearsome. You'd have to have the chops of an A rank or higher to fight off them all. Although, knowledge of local monsters could do the trick too. Different sorts of monsters behave differently. Some are territorial, some roamed looking for prey. There was some that relied on sight, others on sound. If you were knowledgeable of their behavior, avoiding them was not impossible. The problem is that people can't beat a monster's sharp senses. Monsters that rely on sight see through camouflage in an instant, and monsters that rely on sound picked up on the smallest noise. Monsters that lie in wait in their nests make sure that you don't twig on their location, and monsters that row around looking for prey have stamina to chase you for days. Geese had the man god's protection, plus his own skills. He could set out west without getting noticed by any monsters. Nothing to it. Yeah, it's kind of interesting to kind of put this part right here. It is kind of getting, again, to knowledge and survivability and how much more of a benefit he has based on what the man god says. Set out this time, and that is going to be the time where there's going to be no monsters kind of running around. But when you get to this boulder, stop there. Stop there and stay, because then there's going to be something else coming up by that's going to get stepped on. Something came by there at night. A good thing you stopped there. Whoa there. Don't let your guard down. It's not like I have enough tricks that I can afford to relax. Gotta be careful, eh?
Geese kept heading west, never changing course. He wanted to buy a mount, but apparently that would bring monsters down on him. This time, he had to go on foot, or not at all. He was parched, sipping a few drops of his canteen to rehydrate. What made Begarit even harsher than the Demon Continent? The heat. On the Demon Continent, temperatures varied by region, but there was no extremes of hot and cold. Nowhere that got covered in snow like the Northern Territories. Heat and cold sapped the strength from you and dulled your judgment. Very interesting. I mean, that makes sense that, well, it's kind of a southern area there. That's actually very interesting. I mean, that's the big question mark there is like you think in like a perspective of the Earth and how we have like, yes, this one central point right here that's the closest to the sun technically, so it gets the most heat. We have these regions that are like extremely cold, but you almost have like the scale of temperature based on where you're at on the Earth. And here's talk about how like the Begarit continent over here is extremely hot. And then you have like this on the map looking at it. We don't know how it's kind of presented as a globe or if it even is a globe. This could just be like a flat surface. This could be not a planet. So you have like this whole area over here, which is the Demon Continent, and it stretches from the northern area to the southern area. And he's talking about there's no extremes here. It's kind of interesting in that regard, how this whole area here doesn't have extreme weathers. But then over here it's extremely hot, and up here it's extremely cold. It's very curious. I don't think I've ever actually thought about that in like an ecosystem sort of layout, is the idea of the sun and it possibly, if it is even a globe. And yes, you can have that whole idea of like the whole, yeah, there's these each worlds and they're all separated by these barriers and the barren lands in the middle. But is that really a concept where they're physically connected and there's just a barrier separating them and they're just these flat mats basically? Could be. And they all fled to this one side of it, and the barren land's right in the middle there. But there's still like the question mark of, is it really that way? Or is it more of an idea that there's all these actual planets, and there's a barren world in the middle, and they've kind of fled to each one of them. I mean, that's still all technically kind of a question mark in my head. I think the idea of like a cube really does work, though. From time to time, he'd put his hand on his forehead and his neck to check to make sure there was nothing wrong with him. If he got really hot, that'd be a warning sign. He was doing okay for now, but if he kept walking on and on, he'd wear down eventually. Demons are tough, so even a hopeless lot like himself is a bit more long-lasting than a human, but only an absolute moron would think that's enough to keep him alive. That was obvious. Even the immortal Necros Lacrosse kicked it in the end. No saving grace, even for immortal beings. Very logical thinking.
Well, here I am.
Arriving at an enormous boulder, it must have been 20 meters tall. This is where he'd stopped to rest, like the man god said. Geese wanted to laugh at how easy it was to get here. He sat in the shadow of it for a while, not doing anything. Younger folks would get restless at times like this. They might even feel they gotta do something. But sometimes the best thing you could do is stop, if only so you don't waste energy. I think in an environment like that, yeah. Geese found a patch of sand cherries, their berries gleaming like little lanterns. They had spiky, pale yellow leaves that blended in with the sand, and red flowers. You might think they were a delectable blossom, fit for a royal palace vase, but if you knew the truth about them, you'd appreciate how terrifying this place was. The sand cherry's leaves and stems were covered in tiny prickles. They had a powerful toxin, so powerful that antidote magic had no effect. Sand cherries only wound up in the royal palace when somebody wanted the royals dead. They were a very rare commodity. A single sprig was enough to set someone up for a good while. That said, it was thanks to these sand cherries that monsters left this place alone. Geese pitched a tent, being careful not to touch any, and then laid down. Normally, he would spend this time putting together a dumb gadget or two, but he was traveling light as possible. Nothing but the bare essentials to live. Geese wonder what normal folks would do. Did educated types read books? What did he do back in the day? Oh right, he fantasized. All of his fantasies were about the kind of venture he would be. He bet his self from back then would be happy to hear what he was up to now. Traversing the beggar continent, following the advice of a god, taking a nap in the safe spot, surrounded by poisonous plants. All laid out like that, it sounded pretty cool, right? Might be a good story to tell at a tavern. I mean, he kind of gets in that later on as well, but it's like the idea of kind of appreciating that, yeah, technically I kind of became that person that I was always wanting to be. How excited my young self would be at the thought of being able to do something crazy like this. Looking over, Geese saw a sand rabbit sitting beside him. It seemed like it hadn't noticed Geese, or maybe it didn't see him as a threat. He hopped along, and then stretched out his neck to bite a sand cherry. Sand cherry berries were as poisonous as the surrounding chaff, but the sand rabbit happily munched away on them without a care. When it was finished, it stuffed its cheeks till they bulged, and then it hopped away again. Geese assumed sand cherry toxins didn't affect it. Yeah, I think instincts it would probably keep it from eating it, but there could be an aspect of just like trying to survive because it's starving. It might take the leap. But yeah, very interesting thing there. It might actually be something that it can get past. If Geese caught it and took it to Millis, they'd pay through the nose for it. Probably more than your standard bounty. Wait, no. He was a demon. They slammed the gates on his face. Interesting why he's saying that they would actually pay a lot for it. Just because it's a rare creature, or I guess the assumption here is that if he brings them this rabbit, because it's seemingly immune to this poison, they might want to actually study it to find out why. Or to use it to kill somebody. Use its cheeks being full of sand cherries to kill somebody. At sunset, he set off and arrived at the village after walking about 3 hours. The man god didn't let him walk while the sun was up, and along the way, he learned why. A dragon lay dead on the road. A yellow naga. The dragons of the Beggar continent usually lived in caves under the ground. They moved through the sand like fish in water, mostly chowing on sandworms. Strictly speaking, they were supposed to be closer to worms than dragons, but they were just as dangerous as dragons. All the warriors in these parts thought of them as the same thing. Its jaws were big enough to eat 3 geese at once. Its body must have been 100 meters long. Here it sat in the middle of the desert, squashed flat, like something had trodden on it. Scavengers had already eaten half of it, and Geese didn't want to think of the monster that did it. You know what it is. It's a behemoth. He got out of there before he met the same fate. The village had a landmark, a boulder that shone bluish-white. It was a wonder if it drew monsters to the village, but it must be important to those in this area. The village was tiny, no more than a few buildings clustered together. It looked like it could vanish any day. There was one inn, one tavern, and one shop. As you expected, no signs of adventure guild. These folks were self-sufficient, selling whatever they can grow to an occasional merchant. Even Geese's village wasn't this small. Well, maybe about the same. He couldn't remember. The tavern he entered served as the village mess hall. A few workers with dark skin and powerful physiques were drinking and enjoying themselves after finishing up for the night shift. Curved swords, unlike what Geese was used to, hung from their belts. These were desert warriors. There were a lot of elderly folks, and hardly any young people around. This had to be the rumored village of the desert warriors. Very interesting to have this finally called back to. Because we talked about this way back in volume 12, or was it 11? I think it was at the later part of the 11. Desert warriors operated all through the Beggar continent, but stories said when they got past their prime, they retired to their home village and focused on childcare instead. When Geese walked in, they all stared at him with a look of surprise. To be fair, he doubted many demons visited these parts.
Welcome, guest, if that's what I should call you. Yep, I'm definitely a guest.
Geese held up his hands, indicating that he was unarmed.
You don't look like a merchant. Yeah, I'm actually looking for someone. They're not from these parts, though. The one you seek's up there.
They pointed out the window to a towering boulder, like the one Geese rested at. The whole thing had a kind of gleaming glow to it, magic stones embedded into it maybe. Narrowing his eyes to get a better look, he saw it was scaffolded, and had a ladder that extended to the top. It looked like a watchtower combined with a lighthouse.
Got it. Cheers.
He flicked a copper coin to the guy.
What's this? For the info. You don't do that?
The information wasn't worth paying for.
Think of it like a sign of friendship then. Come on. You don't see coins like that every day, right? That there is a Mills bronze coin, you know?
The man stared at it for a while, then put the coin in his pocket, before bringing his fist together in thanks. Why did he give him a Mills coin instead of one from these parts? The teleportation plonked him in the middle of nowhere. He didn't have time to change for cash. Rudius had the same problem. Like, yeah, I really liked, during the whole segment, Rudius going to the Beggar continent, how disconnected this place was. Like, despite the fact that you could bring a coin or whatever, they don't care. Like, that was like the first meal they had. What is this? What do I care? Geese left for the boulder. The closer he got, the better he could appreciate that ginormous size. There was a scaffold platform and a ladder, but the boulder was so big that it wasn't much comfort. It looked like it might come to pieces when he got halfway up.
Hey, I really gotta climb this thing?
No one nearby to answer. He had to shut up and climb. The ladder was sturdier than expected, and there was no wind. Only thing making it difficult was the darkness. But he managed. The flat top of the boulder was studded with daggers stabbed into the rock, all adorned with scrapes of red cloth. There was a mystical letters written on the surface. It would be like a magic circle. He'd seen this kind of place before. If his hunch was right, this is where the village youth came for the coming of age ritual. Or maybe they took the daggers of the dead folks, tied scraps of cloth on the handle, and stuck them up there. Geese's village had a ritual like that too. Not that he had ever done it. This is one of those interesting part where it almost kind of has cultures from two different places being similar that kind of gives the indication there's a possibility that they used to be tied together somehow. I don't know. That's the thing that always kind of jumps out at me whenever there's something like this that comes up. Like, how similar their cultures are, despite the fact that they're on the other opposite sides of the world, so to speak, is always interesting to me. I would assume it's probably coming of age ceremony, because I would doubt that there's many cases where people bring back anything. I mean, they could have a ritual like that, but it seems very specific that they would have to, like, bring back something to indicate they died. I doubt they rarely ever go home to tell them that somebody died. Again, these are places for raising the next youth. Not so much the idea they come back there and tell them, hey, Billy died. Oh, another one died? Got it.
Well, ain't that a view?
Looking up, the sky was full of stars. Under the bright light of the moon, the desert shone blue. Stars continued along the curve of the sky, all the way down to the horizon. Geese found it ironic. The whole reason that he wanted to be an adventurer was to see views like this. Again, it's coming up again. It's like he's acknowledging what he's getting to see. He wanted to see yet unseen sights that waited at the end of endless adventure. Then, when he became a real one, all he ever saw was cold reality. Greed, discrimination, uncensored human nature. All of it sorted. Very interesting there. The idea that he always looked forward to being an adventurer, then when he finally became an adventurer, all he saw was horrible things. People that would rip you off in order to get most of the money from a quest or something like that, or somebody being horrible to you because you're a demon. All these things that come with having to interact with people. People from different locations, different cultures, whatnot, all coming together in order to be adventurers together for a single goal. You're going to see a lot of this stuff. But again, now I'm working for the man god. I'm no longer an adventurer. I'm getting to see the things I never got to see before. It's compounding that he's getting a massive benefit from being with the man god versus his experiences being an adventurer, the thing that he looked forward to so much when he was growing up. It was the second he half retired from being an adventurer and swore himself the man god that he started coming to see these sorts of places. You couldn't beat irony like that.
So what's your deal? You're not just here for the view, right?
The other person was wrapped in several layers of ragged robes, looking like a pile of rags. Geese was pretty sure it was a person. He looked so much like a pile of rags. Still, he had nothing to lose if he was just chatting to a pile of rags. Yeah, this is where I was already thinking, this has got to be the North God, because they're always kind of dressed so oddly. What if I am? Phew, it wasn't a pile of rags.
Then I'd say I wouldn't think an important guy like you would go in for stargazing.
What if I said that's not what I'm here either?
Then I guess I'd ask, so what are you doing here?
But I might not answer you. Isn't that right?
Uh-huh.
Geese wondered why he was deflecting. Going off his roundabout manner of speaking, this was the guy Geese was searching for. The truth is, I'm looking for Master of Beggar Continent.
A behemoth. The master's always traveling around this continent, so there's no telling what it'd be. They say, though, that once every few hundred years, it appears close to this boulder. And that once in every few hundred years is today? He didn't reply, just slowly faced Geese. He was a young man, black hair, with some baby fat still linking onto his chops. The look he gave Geese told him that he was right on the money. No, that's not it. It was only ever a legend. I don't even know if this master really exists. What's got you sitting up at a place like this then? Because it might be today. See, the master passed this way once, several hundred years ago, and since then, it hasn't returned. So it might well be today. It didn't come yesterday, or the day before. Several hundred years later, might be today, right? You're not wrong. I mean, you're not wrong, but I wouldn't hedge my bets there. His eyes said that he was serious. He thought tomorrow could be the day. Grease was pretty sure the only intel that he had was that it passed every few hundred years. With only that to go on, he trekked out here and sat and wait. He was a bona fide nut job. Yeah, I'm getting a sense that a lot of these really powerful people are a little bit weird. But again, it seems like everybody that the man god's is sending him to go get with are all off in some way. But I think there is an element that a lot of people with a massive amount of skills typically does come with something sort of being off, like an obsession with something. Like they get there's something that's making them get over hyper focused on one thing. A lot of people with certain kind of disabilities and whatnot can sometimes be very hyper focused on one simple thing. I mean, that's sort of what they kind of got into with a little bit with Zenoba, as how he's different. He thinks different than a lot of people, and that got him super hyper focusing on one thing. And yes, unfortunately, he didn't have the skills or the power to actually do that, but that hyper focus led to something. It did. It led to the creation of magic armor. And automatons eventually. What's got you hunting the master anyways? It kill your folks or something? That's pretty much it, actually. Liar. The young man laughed. You're calling me a liar? Well, I suppose it was a lie. Was it funny? Well, Geese did realize that he'd asked him why he was fighting. He told him, and then he called him a liar. Geese happened to know how his parents were doing. Sure, his mom was dead, but his old man was practically too healthy for his own good. His grandma was pretty sprightly too. Geese knew a whole lot more than that. Knew that he'd get to see the master. Why he wanted to kill it. What he wanted afterwards. And how things would go for him after that. Every bit of it. Not that he'd rattle off to the kid about it. This kid was a type that would get Shirley if Geese blurted it all out, which meant that he had to get him to bring it up first. You gotta get these types in the mood to talk your ear off. So, why are you here? Have you ever seen someone great and wanted to be greater still? A few times, I guess. There's a great hero I hope to one day surpass. So that might be the greatest hero who ever lived. What? And hunting this master out here in the middle of nowhere is the ritual that'll turn you into a super awesome hero? No, that's not it. I want to surpass this great hero, right? But then the problem comes, how do I surpass him, you see? Don't you have to duel the great hero dude and beat him? Yes, there's logic to that, but that's not the way for me. It's not? People can't always stay in their prime. Battles are swayed by conditions and luck. Winning a fight won't do me any good if people only say that I won by chance, or that I scored a lucky hit. Personally, I would never discount a victory won by chance or with a lucky hit, but the rest of the world isn't so forgiving. You truly become great when people call you great, not a second sooner. Yeah, I can see this, especially with the idea of someone not being in their prime. That was something that Rias brought up, like literally volume 1, question mark? This idea that he wanted to fight Paul before he got too old. He really badly wanted to beat Paul. Paul beat him down so many times, he wanted to get better and beat him before Paul got too old and started kind of going downhill. There is an element there, especially for humans, that once people reach that certain point, start getting weaker, and especially for a title like a hero. Yeah, you didn't earn it kind of thing. Cool, so how do you get folks to call you great? That's easy. You do something a great person did, right? That's why you're here to beat the master? Bingo. I'm going to beat the master, the largest behemoth on the Beggar continent. That was his goal. The behemoths were the largest living thing on the Beggar continent. I'd question, is it global? Is there something bigger than a behemoth that's on the Beggar continent elsewhere? I'd be interested. It's because it's very interesting that he's saying specifically on the Beggar continent. Curious. There was his goal. The behemoth was the largest living things on the Beggar continent. They were massive creatures that even dwarfed dragons. They trampled everything in their path. It was said they were invincible, and here this kid was to slay one. Long ago, the great hero he wanted to surpass had slain one too. The tale had been passed down through ages and spread to all corners of the world. Together with his companions, the hero overcomes adversity, saves suffering people, then goes to fight a giant behemoth and emerges victorious. A heroic epic. This kid was angling to do the same. Still, he was alone. He wasn't overcoming any adversity, and there weren't any suffering people.
He didn't have any grand reasons for coming after this behemoth, unless you counted wanting to surpass his great hero. Now, here he was, waiting for a behemoth, with no idea when it would arrive, here in the middle of nowhere. I mean, Rudius ran into one just walking around. You just have to wander around. Now, Geese, knowing that he wanted to be a subject of a heroic epic, would play the sage in the story to give the hero his next test. He wanted to get into character.
That right, huh? Makes sense. Since you want to be a hero. All right, I'll tell you why I'm here.
Oh, you didn't just happen to pass by?
Didn't it strike you as odd? I'm not a merchant, and I don't have a party. What's a pipsqueak adventurer like me doing? Coming to a place like this?
Huh, then you're saying, in his best prophetic voice, he intoned.
Set forth at daybreak, with your back to the sun, and walk half a day hence.
A heavy silence fell. The kid's eyes were gleaming with undisguised interest in the sudden prophecy. He didn't reply, simply turned around, lay his hand on the boulder, and stared at Geese. He even cracked a smile.
If you do, come back here. I'll tell you something even better.
Geese turned to leave. Wait, what does that mean? Geese didn't answer. He couldn't break character. Now he just had to make a quick exit. But crap, he was on top of a boulder. He couldn't jump down. He took a hold of the ladder and sat down. The kid didn't come after him. But as he descended, he caught him watching. There was a look in his eyes that set Geese's hair on end. His acting got a bit rough on the end there, but it was fine. He assumed it was good enough. He's like,
do this, and then I will tell you something better.
Oh, damn it, I gotta walk it. So there's no like Geese walks into the sunset or something. Cool exit. Geese woke the next morning to a loud rumbling. Leaping to his feet, he ran out of his tent and looked around. Once he confirmed no imminent danger, he went through his routine check. He had a bit of bellyache. Maybe the chill in the night, or the local food didn't agree with him. He headed to the source of the noise without a need to rush. He knew what was about to happen, just like he knew what was happening now. He yawned as he walked around, following the sound. He found a crowd at the entrance of the village. The old warriors were armed. Children looked anxious, and all of them were staring at the distant horizon. Geese excused himself as he pushed through the crowd. The scene that emerged would come straight out of a myth. First, there was a giant beast. It was the weirdest thing he'd ever seen, and it had too many legs sprouting out of its body. Even at this distance, it was gargantuan. Too big for even Geese to conceive its actual size. It had to be 500 meters at least. It made the dragon from the other day look like a baby. It was a behemoth, and it was writhing in agony. It twisted and lashed out, sending up veritable tidal waves of sand every time it rolled over. The only reason they could see it through all the dust was because of how big it was. The behemoth was covered in blood. What's more, something was running around its back. Every time it moved, a new gash appeared, spurting blood. Something was fighting that giant beast. A nearby kid whimpered as he clung to his mother. The old warriors hardly seemed to be breathing as they watched the fight. The fight stretched on for a while. The writhing beast made no sound, just continued to thrash. No one could miss the desperation in its movements. It was fighting for its life. The battle ended right after midday, as the sun began to turn towards the horizon. The behemoth flailing grew more lethargic as it drew closer to death. Even as it bled out, it kept on writhing where it lay, refusing to yield. Its defiance didn't last long. All of a sudden, it stopped fighting. It stood up and walked, slowly, like it was trying to get away. It was way too late for that, but the behemoth probably hadn't worked that out. At the end, the behemoth stretched itself out to full height and pushed up on 4 of its legs, then let out a massive breath, and all of its strength went out of it. It toppled back, as if to sit down, then stopped moving altogether. The moment it fell, the warriors all put their fists together and knelt, lowering their heads to the dead behemoth. Geese didn't copy them, but he felt awkward, so he retreated to the back of the group. The warriors stayed as they were. It was all as if they were waiting for something. As the sand cleared and the carcass came into view, so did the approaching figure on the horizon. He wore layer upon layer of ragged robes and carried a great sword. The calls of a hero echoed from people, everyone clamoring for his attention. That's right, in this village, they would honor anyone who slayed a behemoth as a hero, as the strongest of all warriors, just like the hero of old who brought down a rampaging behemoth to save the village from ruin. The village warriors stood up and got ready to welcome him into the village. The behemoth wasn't threatening the village, but no one cared about that. They looked up to any warrior who could be a behemoth. When the figure reached them, he ignored the waiting warriors. He passed by everyone and went straight for Geese. Very interesting. Very interesting. Now, I was kind of curious because it does mention the fact that he uses a great sword. And it's so weird in the idea, because I don't remember if it actually mentions that he's a North God style, if he's the North God. Again, my assumption is that he's going to be the North God based on how he's dressed. Maybe they brought that up later. I don't recall, but we'll get into that when we get into it. So yeah, my initial thought is that it's going to be the North God. He's just, the dress is weird, and he's in the beggar continent. Now, the question mark is, what is this whole deal about him seeking to be this hero? Why does he want to be this hero and everything? I did have a brief thought that because he's the North God, I wonder if he is possibly, again, being from, again, technically right now, Etoph is like, literally, she's running what would be the Sword Sanctum for the North God style. What if possibility they're somehow related there? Again, could this be the nephew that Bodyguardy was talking about? This one that's always seeking something, always sinking the strength? Then the question mark comes there is, what hero is he trying to be? That wasn't the Master.
Yeah?
The Master's even bigger than that. That was a scary thought. This was a runt. But he was right. This wasn't the Master. Apparently, when this guy fought the Master, it would rage on for 10 days. 10 days with the hero wavering on the border between life and death. Still, I thank you. Your advice allowed me to slay a behemoth.
You're very welcome.
His gaze sharpened. Now, what is this even better story you had for me? He had the courtesy to take interest to what Geese had to say. They could finally have the real talk. Sadly for him, prophecy time was over, and Geese didn't have time to tag along with him while he played hero.
Well, about that. You want to be a hero, right, kid? You want to be even greater than this other great hero.
Not want. I'm going to do it.
Then, geez, don't you think you're going about it all wrong?
What do you mean, all wrong?
See, kid, right now you're copying the things that a great hero did, yeah? Driving out dragons and slaying behemoths and stuff.
Yes, if I can't measure up to what he did, no one will ever bother talking to me.
Look, if you think about it, that's not going to turn you into a hero.
Well, I suppose not. He was a hero to this village, but the village was hardly in trouble. The behemoth meant no harm. There was nothing heroic about this. That's why Geese was going to show him a path where he could become a real hero.
You heard of the Spur tribe?
Yes, a race of devils, weren't they? They said that during the Laplace War, the Superb went around killing both friend and foe.
Some survived.
Where?
Hold your horses, bud. Let me get to the end. See, there's this other guy out there who's even worse than a Superb.
Someone worse?
You betcha. This guy's kind of like the root of all evil in the world, you know? I reckon you've heard of his name before, though. Number 2 of the 7 great powers, the dragon god Orsted.
See, right here, I was kind of getting fear. I started getting afraid right here because he first brought up the Spur tribe. I think he was just trying to equate it, like saying, okay, you see this thing? This is really bad, right? Now let me show you something else that you know, based on stories, how bad this is. Let me equate it to this other thing that's even worse. So you get an idea of how evil this is. But yeah, it was a thought of me like, crap, he's going to send him to go kill Richard. No. That got his attention. Putting on the air of importance, Geese spread his hands, tilted his head, and peered at the kid.
You've heard of him, I'm guessing?
Geese knew it all. What the kid was striving for, who he was trying to surpass, and what that someone did, and what they couldn't. With that, it was easy to stir him up.
He made the Spur clan his followers, and now he's sheltering them.
What? What are you talking about? What the? You making up stuff now? Is it just shock that he's making up crap? The dragon god isn't evil. He's one of the heroes that defeated the demon god in Laplace. By rights, he and the Spur clan should be enemies.
You're talking about the dragon god from however many generations back, right? Times change. People get stupid, right?
Well, I guess.
But that's where you're different. You're trying to surpass the previous generation. I think that's admirable of you.
The kid got real quiet, despite being chatty. Now he fell silent. That was a sure sign that he'd taken in what Geese was saying and given it proper consideration. I mean, yes, that's technically what makes sense there. And the idea that this is not the same dragon god. Obviously, it's not the same dragon god. He doesn't say it specifically. He's just kind of saying that times change, that this is a different dragon god, but not specifically saying this is a different one. You kind of assume that he would say that just to make the distinction there, but
you can kill the last of the Spur clan and defeat Orsted. Then you'll be a hero for all eternity. Not to mention number 2 of the 7 great powers. Just being great doesn't make you invincible and irreplaceable. Anyone who ever had a heroic epic tale made of them had someone they were never able to beat. You know? Because they never had the opportunity.
It does seem like everybody so far is kind of tying into the idea of wanting to surpass somebody or beat somebody. Even technically getting the idea that they can't beat them alone. It's very interesting the way they're kind of manipulating a lot of these individuals. Not specifically saying that you are, not that you can do it, not that you will do it, but that you have the opportunity to do it. And I think a lot of these individuals, if he were to, he's definitely manipulating them, but I don't think he's being absolute about it in a way that it would be so easily something they can see through, I guess the best way to put it. The kid's eyes went wide.
The chance for renown beyond what anyone's ever had before. You might never get it again.
The kid's mouth was shut tight as he watched Geese closely. Geese figured the kid knew better than he did. The kid looked up to him ever since he was little. He had heard all about him from his mom and dad.
And then when it wasn't enough, he went all around the world and collected legends of him, all so that he could be even better. If this kid beat Orsted, he sure as hell would be. Impossible. For years now, no one's known the whereabouts of the Technique God, or the Dragon God, or the Demon God, or the Fighting God. No one knows where Orsted is.
True that, but I knew exactly where that behemoth was.
It wasn't the Master.
Hey, what do you want from me? The Master ain't gonna show up here for another 80 years.
Interesting, 80. I don't know why. Why 80? Specifically 80, when supposedly Laplace comes back. Specifically 80. Is that right? Thank you for telling me. 80 years from now, I'll be back. That kind of indicates the guy is going to be... I mean, he might just be thinking, like, even if I'm an old man, like old, wrinkly old man, I'm going to come here with my cane and hit that thing. But it does indicate this guy is possibly not full-blood human. Which, again, does kind of play into something like maybe possibly Atoph's child. I don't know. But would he look young? I don't think he would look young, though. He'd be way older than that.
Well, 80 years from now is 80 years from now. Don't you want to try your skills against Orsted? He's certified as the world's strongest. Way stronger than the Technique God. If that guy's even kicking, he's been crushing the competition since the Laplace War, and you get to challenge him.
As the kid stared at him, Geese knew there was no way he would ever look at him if he wasn't working for the Man God. The kid was one of the world's few SS rank adventurers. Double S. Double S. And he was on another level, even among them. It'd be fair to call him the very best of the best. That's who this guy was. Even Geese looked up to him. Back when Geese was adventuring, he wanted to be like the guy this kid was trying to surpass now. One day, Geese swore to himself he was going to accomplish great things like him. This is one of the things that I don't like about Geese chapters right now, or at least the last couple chapters for Geese, is like it's almost like it's trying to show a lot, but it's just not wanting to give names. And it's so frustrating. Like, I can apply a lot of this stuff to different people, but it's like, just give a name. Like, tell me who you're talking about. It almost feels like a wasted chapter because you're not really technically getting information out of it. It's just so super vague. It's not super vague, but it's vague. Then reality came and kicked him up the... He never accomplished one great thing. Even great achievements, he could tell, was only something he watched happen. It was like that with Paul, too. In the fight with the Hydra, Geese never got near the front line. Yeah, it was interesting because somebody was mentioning, like, when the anime was adapting that certain part, the Hydra fight, when the anime was adapting the Hydra fight, somebody was saying, oh, look right here, Geese is running away. It's already showing signs right here that he's working for the Man God. And it's like, well, one, you're kind of spoiling it for people that are anime onlys. Thank you. Shut up. But two, it was like this idea of, like, I don't think Geese right there was, like, throwing in Paul and running away. I was all part of the plan for the Man God. Again, he came there helping Paul, and the Man God helped him. He came there with the understanding that the Man God was helping him. So no, I don't think he was coming there trying to get Paul killed. He liked Paul a lot. He loved Paul. So no, that's not really the case there. But yeah, right here it's technically kind of hitting on that again. He watched Paul achieve this epic fight against the Hydra. I was only there watching. It's always been that way. Crazy achievements I could talk about. And yes, he's going to tell people at the tavern that he was the one that did it. But it all comes down to, no, I just watched it. All right, so where's Orsted?
I'll tell you, but there's one condition.
I accept.
Whoa there. I haven't said what it was yet, have I? Don't get ahead of yourself.
I know, but like you would never hand over anything without setting conditions on it.
You're not wrong.
Geese was on the top of the world. This guy he looked up to since he was an adventurer was talking to him like an equal.
It's nothing too arduous. There's two things. For now, you go here.
He handed him a map.
And then, once you get there, I'll tell you what comes next. One more thing. If we run into each other, act like you don't know me. This is all top secret. As for the second thing, there's a guy my employer once dead. A follower of Orsted, separate from the Super clan. He'll definitely try to stop you if you go near Orsted. So basically, I want you to do him in on the way.
Your employer?
Haven't you dreamed of him? This real mysterious guy who gives you advice?
Yes, I think I had a dream like that long ago. You follow his advice?
Well, you know.
The kid made a face that said he sure as hell wouldn't follow any advice from a guy like that, and shrugged. But Geese knew this wasn't true, not when he was on the Man God's order to bring him in. See, the Man God only chooses folks he's certain of. The Man God's a coward, you see. Real cautious. If anyone blabbed at this stage of the plan, the whole thing would fall apart. Which I still have my theory on Galfalion. I really do.
Well, what'll it be? I want a yes or no.
Yes, obviously. I don't like the idea of killing innocents, but as they say, sometimes you gotta get your hands dirty.
They say, huh? I'll take your word for it.
Personally, Geese didn't like the idea of anyone accepting a mission to kill
all those guiltless superbs without question. He remembered back when he was just barely started adventuring, back when he almost died, and Reserved saved his life. Interesting. I don't think they ever mentioned that before. Yes, he was just following the man god's instruction back then too, but in his heart, he liked to think himself an ally of the Superb clan. But you have no loyalties. You'll just burn anybody for the man god. I don't believe a damn thing you say. He didn't have any nasty prejudice against them, but he came this far. There's nothing for him to do but keep falling and still himself for the final splat. Nothing to lose. Nothing to lose. Nothing to lose. Constantly.
Right, that's all. Try and hurry, all right?
Very well. I'll set off at once. So here's the question mark. After this little segment right here, because it gets into him leaving everything like that, here's the massive question mark. It's making it out like it's Reserved. Right here, it sounds like he's saying to kill Superb. He doesn't like the idea of somebody accepting a mission to kill all those guiltless Superbs without question. He doesn't like the idea of this guy who's so willing to jump to killing them. I don't like the idea of killing innocents. Yeah, sometimes gotta get your hand dirty. But it said, there's a guy that my employer wants dead, the man god. A follower of Orsted, separate from the Superb clan. So yeah, you can obviously say that he might be, that you have essentially Geese is trying to equate, if this is Reserved, to Orsted by lying. Yeah, right now, technically, we don't know what time this is happening. Rus could already have met with Reserved and recruited him to join them. I assume that's going to be eventuality that Reserved is going to help him with this fight, if they can find him. But yeah, the assumption here is that he's talking about Reserved. But it says separate from the Superb clan. Like, I guess there's two things here. Is he talking about Reserved and claiming that he's separate from the Superb clan, and the idea that he is lying again and claiming that he's separated himself from the Superb clan, which is a lie. He's Reserved Superdia. He's a Superb. He can't not be a Superb clan. Or is it talking about that there is another Superb out there that we haven't met yet that is not a part of the Superb clan, again, separating itself from the clan itself, even though they're technically all Superbs? I wonder. Or is he just talking about somebody in general? I just think it has to be Reserved or a Superb, because he's saying specifically, I don't like the idea of somebody just accepting the mission to kill a guiltless Superb without question. It just sounds weird. The way that it says separate from the clan doesn't make any sense. That's them. They are a Superb. How can you not be a Superb and be a Superb? I don't know. But yeah, that has me really worried that he's wanting him to kill Reserved, which I'd be curious. And he's going to know where he's at. He's going to be able to point out where he's at. You're going to run into this guy on the way. Here's he on the map. He knows exactly where this person would be. I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't like it. If Reserved dies, it's going to ruin me so bad. I don't want Reserved to die. I don't want Reserved to die. No killing off Papa Reserved Refugian. As he started walking away, the old desert warriors tried to stop him. He paid them no mind. He wasn't in any way prepared for a journey. He just strode off into the desert like he was going for a walk in the park. People like him didn't waste time once they made a decision. Heroes. Geese looked up to heroes too long ago. The thing is, when you grow up and see your contemporaries try to become heroes themselves, you realize how fragile they are. Or maybe young was a better word. Admittedly, out of all of them, this kid was especially so.
Right. I'll stay in this village today and wait for your next message, yeah?
Geese spoke to the air, scratching his neck before heading back to the village. On the way, something made him look back. He saw the figure of a man disappear in the desert. He'd been so easy to fool and easy to manipulate. Even then, no one could deny his ability. But still, Geese couldn't feel secure, surrounded by only guys like that. Into matter how much it was comfort. What? It couldn't finish? We couldn't finish the volume without one more? It is. One more damn it 7 Seas moment. One more on the last lines. We had to do it. Look at this. This book is done, and we have to get one more in. Into matter how much of a comfort it was. We had to get one more in there. Oh, 7 Seas. Two damn it 7 Seas moments in this one. One's a question mark, but yeah. I'm guessing it's saying it doesn't matter how much comfort it was, knowing if they'd be on your side. But you can't win if you always go for the safe bet.
Well, Holy Man God, what do you have to say to that?
And that is volume 22. Volume 22. I have to admit, this extra chapter for Geese was a lot less interesting than the last one. I don't like it because it's obviously, again, indicating that he's going after Rijerd, and I don't want Rijerd to get in trouble. I don't want Rijerd attacked. And again, it could be another Superd. Again, because Rijerd's looking for the Superds. They're all scattered. There's like a few remaining, but they're all scattered. So it could be a different Superd. We could find... That could be a fake out. I will hate that. I will hate that. If we have some point later on, it talks about how they spotted this guy and he killed a Superd, brought his body, or killed him in the middle of this village or something like that. There's reports out there, and then Rudius is like, holy crap, somebody killed Rijerd. And then it goes on for an on, and then suddenly Rijerd shows up and is like, yeah, that was one of the other Superds, and yeah, he's dead. I'll hate that. I will really, really hate that if they do that. But I don't see the man god sending somebody to kill anybody besides Rijerd. Like, if there's a Superd targeted by the man god, it's going to be Rijerd. Anyway, we'll see, though. But like I said, my theories on this guy is definitely that he's going to be the North god. And I'll be curious how that plays out. What was the North god again? He was pretty high up, if I remember correctly. Like, was it 4th or something? 5th? Not high up, but... No, he's 7th. Never mind. This guy... this guy's the bottom of the barrel. That's right. I was making fun of that. The fact that Rudius was going... He wanted to hit all the higher ones, and then he goes, where's the North god? And it's like... Then why are you wondering about the North god? Why wouldn't you be asking about the Technique god or whatever? But yeah, that's interesting. But cool stuff there. But again, my frustrations with this chapter really is how vague it is. There's so many references to people like the heroes and this one person that's really strong, and then the higher ups on the Adventure Guild, people that people looked up to, heroes, yada yada. I mean, there's the heroes of the stories and whatnot that we've already kind of got into before, like Udapin and stuff like that. Is that who they're talking about? That's the question mark. Is that who they're talking about? Are they talking about Udapin? Are they talking about a different hero? Whatever. But anyways, it's fine. It's still a good chapter. It felt like it went a little bit long. It feels like even though I condensed a lot of it, it still felt like it went long. I really did like chapter 11. It was a solid chapter. Again, really nasty cliffhanger there, but that all leads us to where does this go in the tier list? I keep saying I need to fix my tier list before I do this, and I never do. So what is volume 22? What is volume 22? Let's be clear. My favorite illustration ever is in this volume. Roxy with Lada is easily my favorite illustration. I really love the one with Edis and Roxy as well. The shot with Edis and Aisha was great as well. A lot of really, really good illustrations in this one. Even Edtoff being a goofball. But this volume covered from the point that Rudius got back from Millis, told the family. We had a little brief moment there with Lilia trying to figure out what's going on with Aisha. That was a good moment. Lilia finding out about Zenith being there, basically, still being of mind of some sort, which was really emotional. Going right into the Dragon King realm. Everything around Benedict and Randolph, getting Vio involved, all that stuff, the king, going to see Ariel very briefly, seeing her new guards that she has, her new knights that she's building up, going back over there, then going over here to the Demon Continent, doing all this stuff with Atoff, and then eventually going to the Midgard village and this little brief chapter with Geese. Again, similar to the previous volume, probably be one that's not really that rereadable. I honestly don't really find a lot of the fights that are happening lately to be that interesting. There's some fun moments in there. I'm still really enjoying the fights, but they are ones that afterwards, it doesn't feel like you get enough like meat out of them. Like some of these encounters, these fights are sadly mostly all being ended by, oh, magic armor shows up, Rudius wins. I really wish there was less emphasis on the magic armors, but again, I don't blame Rudius. It's his trump card. Like, he pulls that out and he wins. It's his I win card. Why would you not use it every single time? But there is an element where it kind of feels like a lot of these fights end very anticlimactically. I like, at least with this case, unlike the last one, that this has a story significance. He brings out the magic armor and suddenly becomes a large conversation with Atoff about, yes, she recognized this thing, and it has a connection for her, a personal connection for her and Cal. Anyways, a lot said. Again, similar to the previous volume, has like a few really strong points in it. I think this might be another B. I think this might be another B. Wasn't the last volume B? Yeah, last one was B plus as well. I think this is going to be another B. This kind of, for me, falls right in the same area as volume 21. I almost want to put it in A, though. I did enjoy this one a lot more than 21. How many do I have in A right now? No, we're putting B. I'm going to put it in B. Again, I'll reevaluate him later, but that's where I'm going to place it for now. But anyhow, that's another one down. That's another volume down. I'm super excited to open the next volume because, again, that nasty cliffhanger in in chapter 11 sucks so bad. I want to know if Reese is going to turn on Petagus at this point. Are we going to actually go up there? Are we going to find out that Petagus isn't actually malicious about the child? What's the question mark? I think the telling thing is going to be that, again, I see two scenarios here. I see that either Rudius says, no, I'm not bringing my child up there. And then Armanfi goes, he's not going to be happy to hear that. I don't care. And then he's going to go back there. And then maybe Petagus is going to come there himself, like in person. Rudius, I need to see that child. Either way, it's either going to turn into a conflict or Rudius is going to go there. But I think the actual encounter with Petagus, which will have an event, I think it's an eventuality. It has to happen no matter if Rudius wants to go up there or not. The eventuality is going to probably lead to the idea that Petagus wants to check him, and again, I think that might be the idea that he thinks that might be that Rudius and Sylphie, both having aspects, will create the next Laplace. I think it will turn one of those aspects. Once they see the child, it might turn into an idea of him being able to check it somehow and go, okay, I thought it was going to be Laplace. It's not. Do whatever you want to do with him. I don't care. It's not. It wasn't what I thought it was going to be. But that comes a question mark. That if it does turn out to be Laplace, like, if they birth Laplace, because I think the Laplace is going to come sooner than normal. That's going to be the biggest question mark. That is going to be the massive question mark as to what happens then. If Rudius and Sylphie, right here, if this child is Laplace, that literally flips the entire table over. Everything Rudius has been doing up this point is going to dramatically change. Orsted will want him dead. He's going to either have to fight Orsted or somehow convince Orsted. He's going to have to somehow convince Orsted that we have to figure out a different way to open the door. In order for Orsted to achieve his goal, right now, he's just waiting for one more key, Laplace. If that child is Laplace, what happens? Reese now has to fight Orsted again. When Orsted has been the thing that's been keeping him safe this entire time. Now, granted, he can defeat Orsted possibly and still remain hidden from the man god because he has this bracelet and he's done all this stuff with, like, you know, the sacred beast and everything in order to protect his family. But that would suck. Everything Reese has been building up right now would absolutely fall apart. The mercenary band, building up this army, making all these connections with everybody, using Orsted's name, being his right-hand man. Everything right now is for Orsted. Everything over the last, how many volumes has been nothing but Rudius serving Orsted. And now suddenly it's thrown away because his child is Laplace. I don't think that's would be the direction it could go, but it could. There's a bold possibility here of that. It'd be very interesting how much that would completely shatter the story right now. All the structure that it feels like the story has been built on is suddenly gone. Be very interesting. But the twist of that, here's the cool twist of that. What's the possibility upon this whole thing happening? Say Rudius goes up there with his new child, and he goes before Petagus. What are the chances that Petagus, knowing that that is supposed to be the reincarnation of Laplace, instead of wanting him dead, acknowledging it is a child, knows full well that all he has to do, technically, to prevent this from being a thing that will happen in another 80 years or so, or maybe more than longer than 80 years, if he kills this child now, there is a chance that he's still going to have to wait again if it possibly can be reborn again, that you don't have to do some ritual to make it to where you reincarnate again, that just by killing this child, it can be reincarnated again in the future. Like its aspects will then kind of spread again. What if that's a possibility, that's the thing, that he chooses instead not to kill the child, but to instead just keep it with him, keep it captured there? Because the second benefit to that for him is that if he knows what Orsted is doing, it prevents his death. That if he has a semblance of fear that Orsted can kill him, that he want to keep the fact that Laplace has been born away from Orsted. We could have Petagus basically make a deal with Rudius saying, let's keep this a secret from Orsted. Because if he finds out, he will come kill your child, and he will kill me. So it's a benefit between the two of us that we keep this a wraps, that we keep this child hidden from him. Would Rudius do that? I think he would. Because I think what Rudius would do would go, okay, I will accept that. I will do this. We will keep it a secret while I try to figure out an alternate way to get the man god. Because I don't want my way to get to the man god and finish up. I want all this done. I want to stop having to run from the man god. I want the man god to be destroyed by Orsted so that I can finally live my life without fear of the man god coming after me. So he wants that done, but I won't do it at the cost of my child. So while we keep this a secret from Orsted, I'll have to find a different way to get to the man god. That's a crazy theory. This is this is exactly how I felt back when we first had this whole encounter with Petagoose. Like, it's just the same thing here. It's like the what ifs. And this is why I kind of had the last volume and the one before that, I think. Let's see here. Volume 22, this volume I had B+. Volume 21 I had B+. Volume 20 was a C. 19 was an A. Volume 18 is a C. B+. Going back, keep going back. I haven't felt this way in a while. Like, I think the last time I really felt this way was probably one of those early, during or after Ariel's thing, conversations with Orsted. It was really that moment where he started finally opening up to Rudius. Like, I can now trust you with everything that happened to Ariel. He started opening up to him. All that stuff started opening up. And my mind started racing with possibilities, what they can do with this world. Even like Nanahoshi. When he was talking to Nanahoshi about the whole thing with the feature diary. It's like, that's the stuff that I really like, where suddenly I have so many questions. And I felt like I haven't had that in a while, where my theories are going crazy. And it was all triggered by like, what, 2 lines? But it really is reminding me of this back here. But anyways, we'll wrap it up there. We'll see what happens when the next volume opens up. Anyhow, that's a wrap. That's a volume 22 down. We got, what, 4 more volumes to go? Yeah, 4 more volumes. We're about to wrap up this. It's crazy. Thank you guys so much for dropping by for the premiere. Hey, chat. Hope you guys had a great Mushoku Mondays. Thank you guys so much for your support, your kind words, all those support channel monetarily, all those super chats, all those Patreon supporters. Everything means so much to me. You guys are so amazing. But yes, until next Mushoku Mondays, until volume 23, y'all take care. Being his right-hand man. My screen here is too small. It's too small. Too small. Small. And I'll admit that there's a little bit of a repetitiveness here. And I'll admit that there's a little bit of a repetitiveness here. And I'll admit that there's a bit of repetitiveness. And I'll admit that there's like a little bit of a repetitiveness. How's his voice? Hey, it's always. What was his voice? Sorry to interrupt when you're wallowing in sentimentally. Sorry to interrupt when you're wallowing in sentimentality. Sorry to interrupt. In sentimentality. In sentimental out.